I'm going to read 3 poems from 3 different books. The first is from Cascadia. It's a geotheology of California. And this poem covers 30 million years in 24 lines. And it also is written in sentence fragments because so is California. And it refers to Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach, which is, I've always found a particularly irritating poem, but I still love it. Sediments of Santa Monica. A left margin watches the seafloor approach. It takes 30 million years. It is the first lover. More saints for Augustine's mother. A girl in red shorts shakes Kafka's The Trial free of some sand. A left margin watches the watcher from Dover. After the 20th century, these cliffs looked like ribbons on braids or dreads. A dream had come right over with a sort of severe leakage. Ah, love, let us be true to one another. I went down to the Ferris wheel, God's Rolodex. There were those neon spikes around everyone like the Virgin's spikes, old punk's mohawk, evidence of inner fire. I rode throwing words off, red current, light, swearing, ah, love. The century had become a little drippy at the end. We're still growing, but the stitches hurt. Let us be true to one another for the world. Easy on the myths now, make it up, sleep well. And this poem is from Loose Sugar. It is a poem written in the first Gulf War, and unfortunately everything still applies except the price of gas, which is $33.69 instead of $13.69. And Nebuchadnezzar, as probably most of you know, was the evil king of Babylon. Cheap gas. That dithyramb of ticky-tick, boom, brr we hear when we lift the nozzle, pull back on the black rubber and shove it in. The noise hums to a bigger rumble, practically shakes the self-serve pump. Probably it's the ancient forests growing higher, reversing the Pleistocene. They're refusing to become tetraline super unleaded. The trees have decided not to leave their bodies in the rotting executive swamps. Blackened thumbs hold the credit card slips in the clipboard. The sweet young men tear off customer copy, look us in the eye. Their names in wilted red letters over their hearts. Jake, Carlos, Todd with 2 Ds. We should read the names carefully through fumes rising from rainbows of spilled gas on the station floor, still pretty cheap, full tank, $13.69. Removing the nozzle, we should notice when the vagrant drop falls down, the liquid is still pretty golden, pink dominates for an instant, then forgets. Doesn't look like the blood of young men, liquid from bodies, tears, semen, blood, urine, acids. The yellow drop of cheap gas has all those in it. Bodies lie in the sand and the ancient forests, feel them over and stop growing. The hanging gardens of Nebuchadnezzar had one of each kind of flower. We didn't bomb those. The cruel king walked there with his personal servants. We are his now. We are tending the waters of cheap gas where they fall. By the waters, slaves lived for generations. By the waters of Babylon, they moved and spoke. Old ice. This is about that moment at the end of summer when you go into Baskin Robbins and the ice is really crusted inside the bins. The thought that you could even save the light, that you could stop it from having to be everywhere at once. You stood in the ice cream shop, and from the street, in a group of glass trumpets, light came and broke into millions of itself, shattered from the pressure of being mute who knows how long. There also, leaning against the counter, the child who saw nothing but the bins of sweet color separately rimmed with silver. Behind you, thoughtfully placed by the owners, a photo of an avalanche, its violence locked in blue spears. The ice moved one way only, and behind the avalanche and behind the posts that held it, the cars went back and forth like mediators. You who do not exist, you stared along the edges of the freezer. Frost glistened and clustered. Suddenly, it looked as if one act could be completed, mounting over and over, even under terrible pressure. Perhaps the tiny crystals could last forever. Once it seemed the function of poetry was to redeem our lives, but it was not. It was to become indistinguishable from them. Thank you.